Hello everyone, Spartan1000 here, and I think it is high time we discussed a build video for Albaird for Star Ocean: The Divine Force. He's a character I wasn't too sure of whenever he was first usable in the beginning of the game, and over time they eventually force you into using him, so this is perfect for me to actually get to understand the build and then explain it all to you for making a sort of mid to late game DPS build for Albaird. Albaird is hybrid, so the stats you're going to be focusing on are ATK and INT, that is physical damage and magic damage, respectively. You won't have to worry too much about defense. We're going to jump into his passive skills first. Weapons expert, or first let me say, he doesn't have passive skills that are make or break for his build, but situational. So weapons factor being the first one. If you actually have a weapon that has a factor, then you can get 30% more effectiveness out of that. But if you don't have one, this is completely useless. Heavy usage and quick usage could be very great, because heavy usage is going to increase the effectiveness of the items that you're using, and then quick usage is going to make you use those items faster. Now, I don't think these should be a priority over your actual magic spell abilities and your physical attack abilities, but at some point you could do that if you have use for items while you're playing this character. First aid is always a good option for if somebody's trying to burst you. You can get some health back that might save you from getting dropped. Rainy Day Fund is nice because you can accrue money a lot faster, but again, that has nothing to do with your actual damage of your build and the successfulness of it. Auto healing is something that's generally good because you can, have some sort of sustain and longer fights. Longer punishment is great, especially when you have characters that can, put ailments on enemies, but Albaird doesn't have many spells that can actually put ailments on enemies. So this one is kind of, I feel like it's in an odd spot for it to be on his tree. And that covers the basically the overall of the passive. So your safe picks are auto healing and first aid. Where are we at here? We have auto healing, and then first aid is, where are we? Right here. So auto healing and first aid. Those are your two safe picks. And then if you can craft yourself a weapon that has a good factor, if anything, this weapon expert is going to be the thing that's going to help you increase your damage. All the other ones are just flavoring. So there's two paths for you to start Albaird, and I guess it depends on what you want. In the beginning, you start with Raymond and Leticia, two heavily based melee characters. So if you want him to play a more of a magical role in the beginning, you could just start down below. Shadow Remnants is going to generate a floating orb around him that is going to fire up to 4 projectiles when you trigger a semiomancy spell. So the semiomancy spells that he has in the beginning are Fireball and Ice Sword. Fireball, pretty straightforward, launches some fire at an enemy. It doesn't say that it applies Scorch to them. It has no factors, but it still could be some decent early game damage, especially if the enemy's weak to fire. And Ice, basically the same thing, but except you're hitting them with water type damage. So after grabbing these two spells, you can get the most out of using Shadow Remnants. So you would ideally pop Shadow Remnants first, and then fire Fireball or Ice Sword, depending on who it is that you're fighting. After that, you want to prioritize in grabbing as many of the int ups as you can. Just basically pathing in the direction of them. I went down here and grabbed Spring of Wisdom. This reduces the user's guts, which is your magic resistant, but it increases your int, your magical damage, which is powerful and risky. This is going up to 50% magic damage for 10 seconds. That's a pretty long time, but you're losing 30% of your magic resistance. So be careful whenever you're fighting enemies that are casting spells. But if you're fighting a full physical, enemy party, well, then there's literally no consequence here. You're all good. So this is definitely a skill you want to pick up with him, and I would say put this, and I'll tell you where to equip this on your actual button layout later on, but Spring of Wisdom is definitely something we can make use of. We'll grab some more magic damage. We're getting guts because it's in the way. Come up here and grab that. Keep pathing your way down. Extend dodge is pretty decent if you're controlling him. If you're not controlling him, I'm not too certain on the UI's ability to evade hits. I usually see them face tanking them. So, I mean, if you're controlling him, this is good because you have a longer invincibility window. Coming down, you get some more magic damage, and then you get a very strong spell, the strongest spell he has to offer, Demon Gate. Creates a gravity orb that basically functions like a singularity. If you played any sort of game where there's a move like a dark hole that pulls enemy to the middle, that's what Demon Gate's doing. Now this is huge because this is basically his setup for his crazy burst damage or just AoE damage in general. It's already doing 315 off of its base, so scaling up to 10, it's going to go pretty high, well into or well above 500 damage. This is going to be very good, something you'll have throughout your combos, or at least at the beginning of the combo. Then we're going to go to the physical side of things. So you're going to go for as many of the ATK swords as there are available. So we'll pass up to here, swing up in here and grab these as well. And then we're at Purging. Now Purging says it reduces the user's defense but increases the movement speed. Now I could see you using this to get yourself out of tight spots, but for the most part you should be able to evade your way away from enemies without having to grab a move like Purging and activate it. So I feel like we're just going to buy this just to progress further in the tree and not really use it. Peerless Guillotine is very good. You're hitting a lot of people at once, especially when you think about it being used in conjunction with the Demon Gate. That's that singularity magic move that we just discovered down below. We're going to keep pathing up and grab this ATK sword, path our way up this way, grab another one, and then eventually grab this one and this one. Now this last battle skill, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this, so I don't want to butcher it, but this is your strongest damage dealing physical attack. And again, you can imagine that this is going to be used very well with Demon Gate, since Demon Gate is going to hold them still in a fixed area, and that is going to be able to pass through them and then AoE hit anybody else caught in the Demon Gate. So all the other stuff on his tree that I don't have highlighted is for defensive purposes, and you can fill those out as you see fit. If you're currently fighting a bunch of physical damage enemies, or that's what you're worried about the most, go ahead and slap on some armor. But I would recommend that you don't grab any defense just yet, because Albaird is meant to be played as a DPS, more of a glass cannon style. He's a mage. So I would say after you highlight your tree in a fashion like this, go straight to upgrading stats for the moves themselves that you're using, or stuff like the passive skills like weapons expert or spring of wisdom, and so you can actually, you know, increase your damage output potential by reducing your magic resistance. And I will show you what moves you ought to strengthen. So when you're going into strengthening moves, the ones you will want to actually strengthen would be your flying guillotine, or sorry, not your flying guillotine. I'm sorry about that. The Ikaruga, you're gonna upgrade this one because this is your highest damage dealing physical attack, starting at 180 in comparison to all the others, 60, 50, and 24. Shadow Remnants, you won't have to max this one. Instead, you'll max Demon Gate. Demon Gate starting at 315, that's your heaviest damage dealing move, period. And it's probably going to be the opener to most of your combos, holding the enemies in a fixed spot, letting you light them up with a bunch of spells afterwards. Afterwards, I would recommend Peerless Guillotine, and then choosing between either Fireball or Ice Sword. You could probably choose both, but prioritizing Demon Gate first, then this physical damage ability, and then alternating between these three, depending on which one you're using more. As for your active skills, you definitely want to use your Spring of Wisdom. Spring of Wisdom getting upgraded is going to be very useful because you're going to be gaining more magic damage by sacrificing your magic resistance. This is basically a damage buff for him. That's how you should look at it. So you can overload yourself and then go into your heavy damage dealing combos, which in this case you could, if you're going for just a melee sort of combo that's kind of like seamless and flows very well, you can start off with a flying guillotine to do like a stun for them to keep them from starting an animation on you, and then do the peerless one as well to follow up because the animations clip nicely and you'll hit multiple people. And then you can throw a larger one to actually do heavier damage and then probably one shot the crowd. I have Ice Sword on a hold command because after Shadow Remnants is activated, that is if you're running Shadow Remnants, Ice Sword will allow you to activate those 4 extra projectiles that will fire out of there. However, I prioritize the Demon Gate to be the most useful thing for him. So if you want to straight up lock enemies down, whether this is you controlling him or your computer controlling him, if you do Demon Gate 3 times in a row, he's going to be doing the most damage he possibly can do and holding enemies in the same spot. Spring of Wisdom should 100% be on a hold button so that you can just do this before you decide to commit to one of your 3-chain combos. So you can overload your damage first. One of my favorite combos is to Demon's Gate first and then go into 2 of the physical damage boomerang-like attacks, because you're going to be hitting everybody in that crowd. You'll be able to clip 2 of these animations seamlessly while the 1 Demon Gate is still up. Now, arguably what you could do instead of having 3 Demon's Gate in a row, if you don't want your computer to just completely spam the move, you could throw on Shadow Remnants first instead, so that you can get that effect from those projectiles when you follow up and cast Demon's Gate after. And so since this will count as a semiomancy, similar to Ice Sword and Fireball, once this is active first, then you can go into using an Ice Sword to get that extra projectile damage. You can go into a Fireball, or you can go into a Demon's Gate and still get that extra off. And that's basically how his combos will be dumped onto the enemies. It's all revolving around the Demon's Gate being popped first, because if it does get popped first, the other attacks are guaranteed. You don't have to worry about landing anything. Yeah, that's basically how he would function in combat. And as for leveling up the passive skills, honestly, I would say do this last. Because if you have weapons expert and you're set on keeping that there, you're probably not going to have a super good weapon effect until you actually start crafting, which is going to be later on in the game for you to get something that you're actually going to get mileage out of. So prioritize leveling up your chain combo moves first. I could see you making an argument for leveling up your active skills as well if you want to really just boost the crap out of your Spring of Wisdom. And this is especially useful if you go a magical focused Albaird first versus the physical side of his abilities. So 100% max Spring of Wisdom if you're going the magical route first, and then go into your actual spells that you're leveling up. And to me, this is actually making him function pretty well when it comes to fighting off adds by himself, because as soon as the fight starts, he's dropping that singularity, and then he's spamming a bunch of AoE attacks or just single target spells and dealing high damage. You can see that currently at level 55, you could have somewhere around 1,000 magic damage as your stat, and then almost 1,000 for physical attack. It's basically almost there. And that's crazy to think that he could possibly have 2,000 for both at some point and way beyond that. Because Demon's Gate already hits like a truck and it's holding the enemy still. So this actually changed my perception of Albaird, because I thought he was too mechanically inclined for the UI, which some of the characters definitely are. You need to put them in simple routines so that they can stay useful. This is a setup that's going to help him provide crowd controlling effects and lots of AoE damage, and he's going to have physical damage as well as magical damage. So there's not really an enemy type in the game where it's going to be like, I kind of wish I didn't have Albaird in a party. Hybrid DPS characters are very useful in this game. It doesn't feel like there's a time where they're not useful and they're a con to have in the party. So yes, that is basically a mid to late game build for Albaird. I would like to do an updated video for him as well, further showing stat allocation for the abilities once I get the SP to do so. If you enjoyed this build video, please leave a like, comment down below. I hope I conveyed it as well as I was hoping to. If there's any questions, please comment those down below, because it only helps me for doing future build videos coming. So we have Marielle still on the way, JJ, we still have to do Leticia, and we have to do Theo's. So be on the lookout for those build videos. Some of those build videos might just come out at level 99 because we're getting there. We're pretty close. And I'm not sure if 99 is the highest level because I've been hearing something about a 255. So maybe that'll be the next milestone where I start to roll out a bunch of videos anyway for all the people who already have builds. I'll just jump into level 90 builds for those older characters so that you can start to see what should your stats look like based off of that, you know, sort of build archetype for those characters. But I don't want to rant any longer. This has been Albaird's build video. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments about the build videos. Let me know if you're liking them, because I love doing builds and breakdowns. I've been X Spartan 1000, and I will catch you guys in the next Star Ocean of Divine Force video.